the game previews.
This is for all the Tostitos.
And this one is actually finally for all the Verbo Tostitos, at least. On Thursday night, the Verbo Fiesta Bowl, number 6 seed Ole Miss against number 10 seed Miami. The game is 7:30 Eastern, ESPN. Miami's a 3.5-point favorite. David, what is Verbo?
So I've used Verbo. Well, I don't know if I've actually used Verbo, but I do know this one. It's basically just Airbnb, Marriott homes and villas. It's very simple. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. My family has used that before. So interesting matchup here. Two teams that nobody really thought were going to get here. Like we thought they could, but these teams had to beat Georgia and Ohio State to get here. Miami beat Ohio State in the quarterfinal. Ole Miss beat Georgia, and both like the final 4 teams in this playoff, they're all interesting stories in their own way. And I guess if we start with Ole Miss here, as of recording on Sunday afternoon, we don't fully know how many offensive coaches will still be there, because now that we're in portal season, some of those Ole Miss coaches who are following Lane Kiffin to LSU are spending their time at LSU, because you got to host visits and do all kinds of other stuff. We know offensive coordinator Charlie Weiss Jr. will be back. Running backs coach Kevin Smith said he will be back. But as of recording, we don't know if there's any more. And they play a game in less than a week. And that's something I can't stop thinking about. It's like, okay, whether or not you have the coach for the game is one thing, but you are spending the week preparing for a team in the ACC who you've not played before, and you probably don't have many, if any, crossover opponents. That takes a lot of scout work, and you have scout teams and all these other, staffers that put this stuff together. But how much of a factor do you think that could be here?
I mean, it could be huge. I just can't imagine. Like, I feel bad for the kids because this is a situation. I don't think we've ever had this situation in sports. For one, because most of the time, even in college sports, the calendar makes sense. The calendar obviously doesn't make sense. We're doing free agency and the coaching carousel while the postseason's going on. You're seeing that play out right now. And that's part of why the coaching carousel is complicated. It's one thing if Bo Pribula goes in the portal and leaves his team before the playoff, your backup quarterback at Penn State last year. It's another thing if these staffers are having to juggle both sides of this. And I'm sure you feel conflicted, well, if it's like, well, where do you spend your time? You have some loyalty to the people that are presumably paying your salary that you just signed a contract with, but you got the kids back at Ole Miss. It's a very messy situation. Lane Kiffin, unconflicted at the moment, mostly just counting up his bonuses that Ole Miss keeps winning him. We're up to $500,000 after win. By the way, not cumulative. It goes like if they win, then it goes up to 7,000 or 750,000. If they win the championship, they win Lane Kiffin $1 million, which is still wild.
But it's LSU. It's LSU paying.
LSU is paying that, which is very funny to me. So anyway, it is a complicated situation, and
here's a question.
I mostly feel bad for the kids. Like the coaches are in a tough spot, but that is kind of what you signed up for. But the kids, it just feels really unfair to them. That like, hey, if I have some questions about what we're doing in the game plan and I try to call my position coach, well, my position coach, I mean, they might be in Baton Rouge. It's very unclear what the coaches are actually doing this week. So the idea that you're preparing for the biggest game of your life and you're not sure if your coach is down the hall, he might be hosting recruits in Baton Rouge, or he might be on the phone, talking about evals or whatever. You might not be able to get a hold of him for 2-3 hours. That just feels really unfair to the kids. And so I think that it has to be a pretty big issue coming into this week. Whether or not it plays out in the field, we'll see.
And can you imagine if Lane Kiffin was coaching this team? Like he wanted to coach the team through the playoff. Well, this is one of the scenarios why you don't want him to. Because what if he coached Ole Miss to a semifinal and now suddenly he has to do recruiting and portaling at LSU? That's a problem. That's why that's part of the reason they didn't want him doing it. So I think ultimately Ole Miss is again kind of vindicated in that decision. As for this game, I'm looking for a couple of things. First off, also we'll go to Miami. By the way, Miami not losing any coaches or anything. They are here. They're the 10 seed. They're the first double-digit seed to get this far in the playoff, and they have won the most recent national championship among these four. It was 24 years ago.
2002. Mm-hmm.
But, no, 2000. Well, 2001 season they won it in.
Yes,
yeah.
That always gets complicated, but yes.
I think, and we don't have Carson Beck versus Georgia, which is something I think a lot of us had pre-written after Miami had beaten Ohio State. But you got two teams who come into this, I think both feel very good about the teams that they have. And in terms of what I'm looking for, I start off, can Miami win the line of scrimmage? And I mean this on both sides because they did for the most part against Ohio State. Miami has 12 sacks in 2 playoff games already. Ruben Bain and Mesidor on that line have been dominant. Ole Miss, meanwhile, 18th and fewest sacks allowed per game. And we saw Trinidad Chambliss in the second half there against Georgia on the move, making plays. And similarly, this Ole Miss defense, which has not been good for much of the season, they have held Georgia and Tulane both to just 3.4 yards per carry. That includes sacks. But Ole Miss has been pretty good up front the last couple of weeks. And what will that Miami front be able to do? I think that's going to be fascinating.
I mean, do you think there's any chance Miami doesn't in the line of scrimmage here? That it's surprising to me that that's kind of a question for you. What that means for the game, I think it complicates your play calling a little bit. But I think when you see with Trinidad Chambliss is a new level of confidence. Some of the plays that he was making, he just seemed to play really, really free against Georgia and felt like he could do anything. And he didn't make a lot of throws where you're just like, what are you doing? It was just really composed. I mean, that deep ball over the top on that final drive, I think he spun out of some pressure there as well. I mean, that's a throw that's going to live in Ole Miss lore for a very long time.
He just threw that one. He just threw that one up because he saw he had single coverage right away. The ones where he rolled out were a couple of drives before that. But it's the thing is though, like Georgia's not a team that got a lot of TFLs this year. They were not putting offenses behind the chains. And we saw Miami, not only did they get 5 sacks against Ohio State, they were drive-ending sacks. They lost 42 yards in sacks. You're averaging like 8-9 yards a loss on a sack. And that's something that can completely blow up a drive. And with the way Miami was able to control the clock, it limited the amount of possessions Ohio State had. And so can they get to Chambliss? But can you make sure you don't like kind of overrun him, break contain, and then he can get out and run? Because that was not something Julian Sain was going to be able to do.
Yeah.
And so that's what I look at on that side. The other side, though, Miami was always ahead of the chains against Ohio State. They were picking up 3-4 yards of play. Like Carson Beck only averaged like 4 or 5 yards of completion, but there weren't like negative plays that were blowing up drives. They converted, I think, 7 or 8 third downs into first downs because they were third and manageables. And so can Ole Miss stop that? Can they make it a 2nd and 10 instead of a 2nd and 6? And in terms of what Miami's offense is going to do. So I think that is one of my my biggest questions there. Also, can Ole Miss, along those lines, can Ole Miss protect enough to get explosive plays? Because that's what Ole Miss is very good at. They're 4th in the country in plays of 20-plus yards. We saw Trinidad Chambliss hit a number of deep balls in that game. Miami doesn't allow big plays. They're a team that just does not allow you to really go over the top that much, partially because the defensive line gets there. Like, do you think Trinidad Chambliss is going to be running for his life in this one?
At moments, he will. I mean, I think part of this with that, I think Ole Miss can test them in ways that not a lot of teams have tested them because, you look at them, I'd be curious to see who the most explosive offenses that they have played were because you look down at who they've played. A&M, not really, but even A&M, was able to get some plays downfield at moments
late in that game.
Yeah. But you look at the rest. I mean, Notre Dame, not a particularly explosive team in the passing game, at least. USF, there's an athletic advantage, so it's a little bit different.
Yes, USF.
Florida State, Louisville, Stanford, SMU, Syracuse, NC State, Virginia Tech, Pitt. I think they can test them in a way downfield that they haven't been tested a ton this year because the ACC was so down. It was what it was. And so I think you're right. You've got to protect to be able to do that. But I think they're going to have some opportunities there with their receivers. This is probably, I have to look. I mean, other than A&M, I think A&M's receivers are probably better than Ole Miss, but this is probably the best group of receivers that they are going to play outside of obviously Ohio State, and A&M. So that'll be interesting to see.
And Miami let Jeremiah Smith, not let, but Jeremiah Smith got his. He had like 7 catches for 150 something yards or something like that against Miami. So like it was there at times, and you saw. I am also I'm very interested if Ole Miss is gonna go like tempo here, because Ole Miss averages 75 plays per game offensively, one of the most in the country. Miami's defense only averages 62 snaps per game. And you saw late in the first half when Ohio State was going tempo, they pulled Bain and Mesidor and pulled some guys in that line to kind of get them some breathers. I'm curious if Ole Miss comes out really fast and tries to tire out that Miami front because they don't have the depth maybe some other top teams do.
Well, so you're gonna have to do something to minimum, because I don't think they're gonna be able to block those guys. Nobody's been able to block them. I don't know why Ole Miss would be the first to be able to do that. And so you have to do some things to minimize that. What that is. Tempo can do it. Screens can do it. Can you just run it down their throat a little bit? Basically, if you're just letting those guys tee off on you like it's 3rd and 12 every play, you're going to be in trouble. So yeah, there's a number of ways to do that, but they've got to be able to make it difficult on those guys, make them think they can't play see ball, get ball, because if that happens, you are in trouble against the Miami front.
And Ohio State figured some stuff out. Like end of the first half and through that third quarter, they were going a little bit faster. They were finding some stuff and kind of neutralizing that pass rush a bit up until late in the fourth quarter. What are you most interested in this matchup?
I mean, I think it is that matchup, because Miami, they do kind of live off of the pass rush, and offensively, they're good. A healthy Mark Fletcher has really obviously upgraded their offense. Their offense has played about as good as we've seen it since the start of the season. Since he's been able to be in there, he is a tough guy to bring down. The running game has obviously we've seen it improve quite a bit since he's been able to be back. But ultimately, if it's really hard for you to protect, it's going to be tough here. And Chambliss being a little bit more mobile, I think, can help that. In a way that Julian Sane was not, and being able to escape some sacks, extend plays. When you start extending plays, you can spin out of a sack. That makes life really hard on the secondary. And Chambliss and these receivers seem to be really, really adept at running scramble drill against Georgia. Chambliss making plays on the run, making plays downfield. Some of their biggest plays of the day came on broken plays. And so can you create out of that? Can you neutralize that front? In the ways that we talked about, whether that's play calling, whether that's Chambliss being a good athlete, whether that's establishing the run game and being able to hit on some play action, figure out what you want to do. But I think, to me, that will decide the game, because if Ruben Bain and Akeem Mesidor are just wrecking shop all game, this is going to be an ugly outcome for Ole Miss.
On the other side, Carson Beck, like, he's quietly been like really, really solid. Pretty much since the SMU game. He has 1 interception, completing I think like 75% of his passes, 8.7 yards per attempt as a team. Now, he didn't have put up big numbers in these 2 playoff games, but he didn't need to. One, at A&M, it was incredibly windy. That was going to be a very difficult spot for anybody to throw the ball in. But against Ohio State, he threw for 7 first downs. He ran for another. I'm very curious if that Carson Beck run aspect happens more in this game, because we saw Gunnar Stockton get free a couple of times against Ole Miss. He ran for 2 touchdowns. Can Carson Beck give them that? Or will, because he did it so much against Ohio State, is Ole Miss going to be more prepared for that? Because it was that play where Ohio State put Arvell Reese and QB spy on Carson Beck to get him down on one of those third downs. So, and then can Mark Fletcher move the pile forward? That's where, again, I get back to Miami was not getting hit with a lot of TFLs and falling behind. They were finding themselves in 3rd and 4s a lot, and that's what you're going to want to be able to keep doing. Kicking could be interesting in this game, by the way, because obviously Ole Miss's kicker Lucas Carnero made 3 huge kicks in that Sugar Bowl, 2 beyond 55 plus, the 2 longest kicks in Sugar Bowl history. And Miami's kicking has been like, it's been pretty good on the year. The Texas A&M game was kind of weird because, again, how windy it was. But if this becomes a bit of a lower scoring game, and if your drives are ending not in the red zone, but they're ending like at the 30, at the 35, Ole Miss has a guy who can put points up there, and he's doing it in a dome. Once again.
I think ultimately, Chris, as we kind of look at the pick for this game, underdogs have done very poorly in this round historically.
Yeah.
This is when we've gotten to the 4-team playoff. I think it's a little bit different because teams have won their way here versus like some Oklahoma teams that didn't acquit themselves well here. Michigan State, Washington, Cincinnati, some games in the past that were not the most competitive. So I don't think you're talking about a game here that looks like those necessarily. But I do think that, to me, Miami, clearly a better team here. I think the coaching thing is a real issue. I just can't imagine having to split time before your biggest game and prep on a short
in less than a
week.
Week. Again, it's not like we're having 2 weeks in between games. Like it's a week, and they're
it's
busy.
a problem. And I think that comes down to the players. And I to me, this feels like Miami wins this thing and wins it pretty solidly.
Interestingly, this game has the higher over-under by a lot. 52.5 is the over-under. So that's a pretty decent amount of points you would expect both ways. For a Miami team that, like, they haven't scored a ton. They got the pick 6. It's not like this is one of the most explosive offenses in the country either.
Feels like an under to me.
Could be. I think in this game, it ultimately comes down to what I said. Can Miami win the line of scrimmage? Can they dominate the line of scrimmage potentially? Or can Ole Miss neutralize that enough to get your explosive plays? Can Trinidad Chambliss get outside the pocket and make some plays, or is Miami going to get him down? Can they tempo at all to kind of try to neutralize that? I think the kicking could be a very big thing here. And then a couple of turnovers in a game like this can always go. Like I always say, football comes down to finishing drives and turnovers. Are you kicking field goals? Or are you getting touchdowns? And are you going to have a backbreaking turnover or two? Miami got a pick 6 against Ohio State. Ole Miss gave up a fumble 6 against Georgia and was able to overcome it. A play like that can completely change a game. I'm going to go with Miami wins and covers as well. The 3.5, I think it was. It's kind of wild to think, the Miami team that I think I picked to lose in the first round is the favorite in the semifinal against an SEC team.
Yeah, I mean, I think the coaching situation influences some of that, but I think Miami is more talented. They're a better team. I just don't trust them. Ole Miss can win this game, but Miami playing at its peak is as good as anybody in the country, and certainly as good as anybody left. We'll kind of see. I don't know that we know officially kind of what Indiana's ceiling is, but I think Miami can go toe-to-toe with them if they play at their peak. The question is, can you get Miami playing at your peak? Mario Cristobal in big games. We haven't really seen him in this level yet, and he hasn't made a ton of mistakes in game management. We saw some kind of iffy stuff from Pete Golding. Didn't love the way they handled the end of the first half, but I think some of that might influence this game. But to me, Miami clearly a better team.
Miami seems totally like focused and game. Like they're only worried about one thing here. They're not worried about 50 different things. I think that plays a role as well. Like Miami gets the win. Friday.